Hello and welcome everyone. Glad to have Ruchik with us, who's the director of Keystone Universe of Education, which is a rapidly growing coaching institute based in Ahmedabad. We would love to know more about their journey, and I think this will be a great learning experience. And great, by the end of this conversation, I think there'll be a lot of takeaways for other people who are planning to venture into education or running an institute themselves. So Ruchik, thanks a lot for doing this.
Thank
and
you.
would love to know and get started with a little bit of an introduction about yourself and Keystone.
So, I am Ruchik. I have actually joined the institute just a couple of years back in a full-time capacity. The institute was founded by my mother and three other academicians who have been working in this space for many years, so almost 17-18 years. And I think the journey of Keystone has been one from being a tuition class to a coaching institute. So each of these founding members of the institute, the organization, have been teachers, very big names by themselves. And the journey from them leaving the classroom and stop being teachers to being mentors, and stopping teaching the students and starting to train the teachers, that I think is the journey which has happened in the last 2-3 years. So I come from a typical corporate background. I am an engineer. I've done my MBA, worked in the corporates for 8 years, and have always been looking at how my mother was contributing to this space. Every trip that we would take, she would be at it, and at that time WhatsApp and all of that was not prevalent, but still she would figure out some way to be available for her students to solve her doubts. And so almost 7-8 years back is when I decided that I want to join this space.
Right.
It was a difficult move for me also, but I think there have been no regrets ever since I have taken this big decision. And currently I am the only non-academic director in the institute. All of my other partners, they are academicians, but all of them have stopped teaching now, and all of them have taken mentorship roles.
Right.
So from around having 1,500 students 3 years back to a journey where we have more than 5,000 students in the current academic year, things have grown in the last 3 years. I think post-COVID also things have changed for us. And one big reason was that during COVID, when everyone started to downsize and everyone started to trim their teams, this is when we decided that someday COVID is going to end, and we would want to ensure that our teams are intact and we focus on increasing the leverage that technology has in our overall systems and processes. And that really helped us when the COVID scenario was out. So that is how the journey has been.
You briefly touched upon it on the scale of Keystone, right? Would love to know a little bit more about that. When you guys started, was it just one center? How did you plan that? And what were your initial plans versus how has it been scaling this venture up?
So, like how most of the institutes and organizations grow, it started with my mother teaching at our home and all other directors starting from a very small setup. And yes, we had one center when we started. And for almost 6-7 years, we had only one center. Then we kind of expanded to 2 centers, and then the journey started increasing. 3 years back, we had around 7 to 8 centers, which grew to 11 just after COVID. And that was the year that we decided that now our systems are in place, we have good teams, and that's when we started growing from 11 to 25.
And through this entire growth journey, what are the functions? Obviously, there are academic functions, but for people watching this who may be looking to, let's say, open up their own institutes, I guess the pace of new institutes coming up is clearly increasing in India. What are some of the functions that, you and your core team do on a day-to-day basis, and what needs focus during the early stages and the growth stages?
That's a very good question. In fact, when we at a partners level, we keep discussing, and one of my partners, Mr. Kapil Rathi, he is a physics teacher himself, and over his experience of teaching for last 17 to 18 years, he always says that most academic problems actually have roots in non-academic things. So if a child is actually not performing well in the class, there is a very good chance that there will be something else which is bothering him, which has nothing to do with academics. And therefore, I think one of the key reasons why at Keystone we have been able to get traction with the students and parents of Ahmedabad, that is that we have focused a lot on the non-academic aspects. So we believe that there has to be balance between padhai and passion. We have believed that there has to be significant time that our teachers and mentors spend with our students outside the classroom.
Right.
So that connect really helps. And our job as directors, as founders, is to facilitate that this happens, which means that we need to give enough breathing time to our top teachers, to our mentors, to spend that kind of time with their students, to spend that kind of time on brainstorming. So there are few decisions which we took few years back, which is really helping us. So number one, most of our teachers are full-time with us. We ensure that every morning we discuss about how the academics are going, who are the students who are transforming very well, who are the students who are still stagnant in terms of their academic performance. The other thing which is helping us is that we have been very clear with what we want to do. So unlike many other institutes which are again doing really well in Ahmedabad and pan-India, we have never been all India rank focused. We believe that there are enough good people and good teachers who are doing amazing work in that space. We want to be a transformation oriented institute, which means that if a student joins us at a 60% level, how rapidly can we take him or her to a 75, 80, 85%? If a student joins us at 90, how can we take him or her to 95, 99? And that obsession over the delta, that what is the difference that has happened in that student's life, in the academics of that student since he or she joined us, that obsession has really helped us to keep pushing the envelope. In order to have that obsession, there is a huge requirement for data. There is a huge requirement for people who are looking at this data, who take this data seriously. And one of the analysis that we did was that if there is one indicator that we have to really focus on, which has the highest statistical correlation with the academic outcome, which is the results, that is attendance. Right? So we looked at a lot of tools that we compared. We had a correlation study with attendance, with homework, with Keystone tests and school tests and all of those things. And the highest correlation came with attendance, which means that if we are able to ensure that students attend classes regularly, there is a very high probability that they will do well.
Right.
And therefore, our entire focus since that study was to ensure that students attend the class.
Right.
And especially in higher grades, what happens is that if a student misses one class, the impact is not just on one class. That's on 2 or 3 classes, because you miss one class, the syllabus is going to go ahead. So the next class you're not going to understand. The next class you're not going to understand. So the third class you'll understand again 50%. So such a backend team which focuses on data, does all these analysis, seems like a very corporate structure for a small institute and organization like us, but that has been our big differentiator according to me.
No, I think you brought about some really interesting points in terms of the positioning of going after transformation rather than all India ranks. I think all the legacy institutes that have been in our country have been very AIR focused, and you've taken the conscious call to not be focused on that. So I'm assuming a lot of thought has gone into it. The correlation with different data points is also very interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people will take away these things. So towards the end, you mentioned that there's a lot of functions that you're doing data. Just before this conversation, I also watched a video film you guys made about your teachers. So I see that there's like marketing happening as well. Can you touch upon a little bit about your team? Like how many members are involved in driving Keyforce forward? What are some of the key roles that people are in that are needed to get this growth?
So currently we have about 415 people as a part of Keystone. Most of it is academic staff, but we have a strong central team. So we have all the usual functions that any business organization has. So we have marketing, finance, HR, operations, analytics, technology. So these are the larger functions that we have. And these functions have also started taking shape in the last couple of years. There was one person who was handling 3-4 roles, and then we have brought in specialization. And even we realized, like if you look at the current performance of the Indian team in the World Cup, right? And we could clearly see that every team member had a very specific role that they were playing. So Rohit Sharma would come and give a flying start, and then Kohli would come and anchor the innings. And that's what we also realized, that when we moved from an organization where, let's say for example, my mother or any of my other directors, they used to be the same person who would teach also, they would make the papers also, they would be checking the papers also, take inquiries also. And from then, when they now have to only focus on mentorship, our productivity has really gone up, our delivery has really gone up. And my mother tells that the kind of delivery that we are giving today was never happening even when she used to teach on her own.
Right.
So these functions are very important, and obviously for a smaller institute it becomes difficult. For a larger organization, these functions make more sense. But the sooner these roles are created, the better it is. And I think the big mistake that most teachers make is them believing that doing great academics is enough to ensure that an organization thrives, which I believe is not enough in today's day and age.
One of the interesting things you mentioned is that in the early stages, your mother was doing everything. Do you think the fact that you did everything yourselves, did it give you a better understanding of the eventual customer or students, and did it help you building?
It definitely helps, but what has really also started helping is when you started getting experts of different fields. So now if there is someone who has an experience of, let's say, fees collection, and what are the systems to be put in place for that, rather than doing all those things manually. That has also helped us to catalyze this entire process. So I think it's a combination of us being grounds hands-on and having some people who come from outside and ensure that they give you some outside in perspective.
So when I was doing the initial research and making the notes for this, I think one of the questions that I was very interested in asking you, given that you have so many branches, was how are you keeping a track of everything, right? Like there must be so much data related to fees that must be coming in, payments coming in all the time. I know you guys have been working with Jodo for quite a while now, but how has Jodo helped from that standpoint in scaling up to new branches, and our software, how has it sort of catalyzed that journey?
So I think Jodo has played a very critical role in ensuring that we have a peace of mind, right? As an institute owner or as an organization owner, one of the biggest worries is that you are putting in your everything, you're giving it your heart and soul. So we have a 7 days working week. Sundays are the most extensive work for us because that's when most of the parents are free. And when you're sacrificing so much, you finally want to ensure that your finances are in place. And it's very difficult to kind of just use Excel or the old age physical registers to document everything, and that way we have been very, very clear that at Keystone we would always be compliant with all the taxes, and all the revenue that is collected is going to be properly systematic and documented. But the legacy systems that we had, they were very archaic, and they would not have worked when we scaled up to 25 centers. So I think the journey with Jodo started when we were just 7 to 8 centers, and initially it took some time for our team to understand this is what we need to do. And today if you ask any of my counselors, they cannot imagine that without having access to all this data at their fingertips, whether through website or through app, it would be possible.
I think one of the interesting things that Kaustav told me before this was that your counselors are extensively using our dashboard to send payment links, to do reconciliation, to issue receipts, track everything. So what is the feedback that you get from them? Do you because we want to be able to communicate this to a lot of large institutes that what we are building is actually not just finance first, but it's also friendly for people using it on the ground.
So I remember when Kaustav had come and met us almost a couple of years back, one of the things that really stayed with us was the aspect that there is a platform that Jodo provides where all the fees related stuff can be at one place. Now for a 5,000 strong headcount student base, we just have 3 people in the finance team. And that is only possible because the data is available in a structured way. There are exports available, and then that can be entered into Tally. So all of those systems are made very easy through the Jodo dashboard. Even when we look at what admissions are happening, how the enrollments are going, we only look at the Jodo headcounts. So that also is a structured way of us incentivizing our counselors. And now every decision that we make in terms of the fees, in terms of how much is spending, which counselor is doing well, everything is routed through the Jodo dashboard.
That's awesome. I mean, that's an innovative way to use our offering as well. I don't think many people do it like that. One of the things that is interesting is that you say that you incentivize your counselors to actually, get students onboarded to Jodo. Which and I mean, I'm sure there is existence of some older payment behavior also, maybe people paying via check, cash, card. Why do you want that to all move to Jodo? Like, how does that help you? Because sometimes this is the question we get, right? That PDC collect करना और flex setup करवाने में ज़्यादा कोई फर्क नहीं है, same ही होगा. So how has it? What is different for you?
Honestly, it's not that PDCs are totally out of the system, but PDCs have a lot of leakage. They have a lot of tedious transactional behavior that goes through, a lot of dependence on whether the person is entering the right things. And when we have 25 centers, we deal with different branches of the bank, and if there is some error, whether there is a signature mismatch, whether information is not put in correctly, and there are a lot of things that go wrong, right? And the reconciliation of that, getting that check back into the system, all of that takes a lot of time and results in a lot of leakage, right? And as an owner, my biggest peace ka source would be that the money that we deserve, the money that we have all earned through a lot of hard work by all the teachers giving their best, is that it comes in the account.
Right.
So what the different payment options of Jodo help us to ensure is that, number one, there are multiple options that a parent gets, right? So there is a direct payment option, there is a flex setup, then there is a loan option. So depending on the different profile of the parent, he or she gets that option, that what is most convenient for them. And we are incentivizing our counselors to follow all these different products of Jodo because it helps us to avoid the leakage. And if I look at the larger incentive kitty, that would still be a fraction of the actual leakage that we would have otherwise undergone, the kind of resources that we would have to employ to tackle all these PDCs. So it's really useful that way.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned our loan product as well. I was in Ahmedabad just recently. I had gone there for a wedding, and I find that in Ahmedabad, I find some of the most innovative and hustling mentality people. Like my cab driver was a guy who was also running a diamond manufacturing, machine manufacturing thing, and I had a long conversation with him, and I was surprised by how financially aware people are in general in Ahmedabad, maybe compared to other cities. One of the things that comes up often when the Jodo loan is mentioned is, people asking, how is it no cost? How, people have a general aversion to loans is what I have seen. Especially gets even more when it's education. So I wanted to, get your thoughts on, let's say you had to pay your fees and you had this Jodo no cost EMI plan available. Sometimes parents have the money as well, but it's still better to choose this plan, right? So I would love to get your thoughts on that as a parent, how would you make that decision? Why do you think the Jodo loan is a superior way to pay fees in general?
So especially for anyone from Gujarat, right? We Gujaratis are very prudent in terms of financials, and it makes a lot of sense when instead of paying the fees at one shot or in 2-3 installments, if my money is going to go in equal monthly installments and at no cost of interest to me, because the entire cost is borne by the institute. And it makes sense for the institute because you are getting the money up front. So if you had to, let's say, borrow this money from the bank, you anyway had to pay an interest, and there was anyways a financial charge which was going to be levied on us. And instead of that, if we are giving an offering where a parent or a student can register at a very nominal rate, and then they get the flexibility of paying through all these equal installments, for the institute it makes sense because we get the money upfront. For the parent it makes sense because they don't have to take the burden of the entire payment. Even if I have the payment, right, you might just invest in mutual funds or equity, and that's what generally people in Gujarat do. So it makes a lot of sense, and it would not be right on my part to say that it's all very easy. So it's not like 100% parents take the loan product, but there's a significant portion of parents who, if guided properly, understand the benefits of this, and we are also undergoing that transition. So if we look at how many loan products did we do last year, the number was very small, but we have been learning, taking taking help of the Jodo team, understanding how to pitch this.
Yeah.
And that way a lot of support is given by Jodo, that even team members from your company, they come, they are there with our counselors to help the parents understand.
So as we've been talking a lot, you are obviously rapidly growing. You have 26 centers and all of them are owned centers, which means that as you grow further, there's a lot of capital required to get new centers up and running, new teachers, a lot of costs involved. How do you think Jodo helps with this? Like you mentioned, our cred product and our flex product getting money on time. How does this help with this expansion and requirement of capital?
So I think whenever there is the talk of expansion, there are two things which are very important. Number one is the availability of cash, and the other is the predictability of the cash. And both these things are possible when you use any structured platform. And Jodo that way has helped us in two ways. Number one, through the loan product, we obviously get the money up front. And the other is a predictability. So I can plan my cash flows accordingly. So I can plan my expansion accordingly. And that way it has really helped us in having the confidence of growing, of expanding, because there is a life cycle before which a center actually becomes cash flow positive.
Right.
Till that time you need to invest in that center for 1.5 to 2 years in some cases. So that is where the availability of cash and the predictability really helps.
Right. Thanks a lot for your time. You've been really kind and really gone in depth about some things which will be very valuable for people looking
really hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, people looking to start with institutes, and obviously you've given Jodo also like a glowing endorsement. So thanks a lot for this. Just wanted to end with some thoughts on two main topics. One would be your experience working with Jodo, and what would be your message to other institute owners about Jodo. And the other thing in general would be like you've gone through the growth journey. There's a bunch of institutes that I think we all talk to which are still just have 1 centers, 2 centers, trying to get that initial traction. What would be your message to them to sort of encourage them and grow the whole thing together?
So let me start with the second question first. I think it's a process, and we are also in that trajectory. So there are so many institutes which are much ahead of the curve than us, and we are just somewhere on the same learning curve at different positions at this point in time. And I think what really works is being true to who you are, what really impact you want to bring to the society. As cliched the answer is, but it is very true. And we have tried not to be distracted by what others were doing.
Right.
We tried to stay true to what we really wanted to do, what is the difference we want to make in the education space. And slowly, steadily, the returns, the rewards of that hard work really comes. It's a journey which started many years ago for us, and today we are growing very rapidly. And if someone just looks at the last 2 years, they will see a lot of rapid expansion. But if you zoom out and look at the overall journey, then in 20 years we have just grown to 25 centers, right? So it takes time, but it will happen for sure. And coming to your first question, I think the overall experience with Jodo has been fantastic. As an organization, we believe that our biggest strength is that we are very open to feedback. We believe that there are so many humans involved in any education that there is a very high chance that someone will someday mess up things, and someday someone will make a mistake. But the beauty is that you sit on it, you rectify that mistake and ensure that it doesn't happen. And a similar openness is what we have found in the culture of Jodo. They have been very feedback. I mean, you guys have been very open to feedback. There were some things in the product which we said that this is not how it works at Keystone, and that customization, that hunger to learn and evolve the product with time, that has really helped us to streamline our systems and our processes. And there's a huge role that Jodo today plays in the larger functioning of Keystone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this, and
Most welcome.
All the best for Keystone.
Thank you so much.